Hello everyone, it's Jennifer Fitzgerald at Deluxe Lifestyle Strategies, and today I'm actually starting down a journey, a challenge rather, to go out into social media, which isn't totally unfamiliar for me, but it is a little bit unfamiliar for me to actually get on every single day and make some kind of broadcast, whether it be on YouTube or a podcast or a Facebook Live. We're going to be doing it all actually because I have the technology, so I might as well, right? So if you're interested in the things that I have to say, make sure that you click the button below because I'm going to be doing this 5, maybe 6 days a week, and I got a lot of really amazing things to share. So this first one today is I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory about myself, about how I got to where I am now today, which is teaching people how to make, save, and protect money, both on a personal side and on a business side. And so let's go back. Let's rewind all the way back to the very beginning. My first 30 years, right? I didn't used to think that my story was very exciting until someone started asking me to tell my story and all the different things that I've done throughout my life. And if I sit down and really start talking about my life, I've done a lot, and people are usually kind of blown away at how much I've done. So for the first 30 years of my life, all I ever wanted to be was a ballerina. Okay, it was every little girl's dream, right, to become a ballerina when I was young. It's not anymore these days. Little girls don't want to be ballerinas anymore. They want to get on TV and do Dancing with the Stars. A little bit different, but still dancing's in there. Okay, I started off my dancing. My mother introduced me to ballet when I was 5 years old, and she actually introduced me in a different way. She took me to a class that was both ballet and gymnastics, and I did that for about a year and a half, and when we moved, all I ever asked my mom was, when do I get to go back to ballet class? So she assumed that I had made that choice. And I do look back over it today, looking back, did I actually make that choice as a 7-year-old that, I don't like gymnastics, but I do like ballet, right? And I was really weak in my upper body. So I couldn't do any of the pull-ups. I was really bad at any kind of push-ups, or I couldn't stand on my head. Like none of the things that were gymnastic related could I actually do. And so my legs were stronger and I became a ballerina. And I will tell you that unfortunately, a lot of people, they dream about accomplishing something like when they're a little kid. We always have these big far-fetched ideas of what we're going to do. We're going to be astronauts or professional athletes, which I became a professional athlete. I will tell you that being a ballerina is a professional athlete. It's just like getting into the NFL. The jobs are few and far between, so it's very highly competitive. So it's not like, I'm going to become a ballerina and, just put in my application here in the town that I live in. So over my career, one of the things, there was a lot of things that were really different about, my parents moved around a little bit when I was younger, and one of the places that I started to go back to dance with, they told us, if you work really, really hard from the beginning of the year, and I think I was 11 or 12 years old at this time, whoever works super hard, we're going to pick 5 kids, and I think there was about 12 kids in the class, but we're only going to pick the top 5 kids, and we're going to let you have point shoes. And obviously in the ballet world, point shoes is a very big deal. And getting to finally progress to that level is an honor. It's not something that you want to do too early because you don't want to damage kids' feet when they're too young and they're still growing and such. But by the time you're getting to 12, 13 years old, you can start doing that. Although, interestingly enough, the Russians do not start children that young doing that. But they don't start them that young at all, even going to just normal ballet class. So I worked really, really hard. And I think that was the first challenge that I had ever had in my life was if you work really, really hard, then you get this reward. And I wanted that reward. I wanted that more than anything. And I worked at home. I did stretches. I did extra work. Like literally, if I was standing somewhere, I was working out my feet, getting them stronger, making sure that when I got chosen to get point shoes, that I was going to be, ready for it. Unfortunately, even back then, and this was a while ago, or not, you'll eventually, after you see some of these recordings, realize that I might be I might have been alive for a little bit longer than what you might think. Middle of the year, it's after the Christmas holiday. This is when we're getting the choice, who gets the point shoes. And they go, okay, everyone worked so hard. You're all going to get it. Oh my gosh. I was not happy. I mean, I was happy because I got my point shoes, but oh my goodness, it's that whole, let's give everyone an award thing, which I really don't agree with. I think that's, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but in my opinion, giving everyone the reward that everyone is in a challenge to accomplish kind of depletes the award, right? And I've actually talked to my son about that a couple of times when he was doing a Taekwondo martial arts competition a couple of years ago. It was his first competition. And we talked about it. I said, if you feel like you didn't win the award and they give you one, what are you going to do? And I was very proud to say that he actually said, well, I'll just give it back to him, because if I didn't actually win the competition, why should I get an award? And I didn't coach him in that side of it. It was just a logical thing that he came to, and I was very proud of that point. So, sorry, I digress. And this is where this is all going to go, because I bounce all over the place. So stay with me, stay with me. We're talking about my past in dance, right? So I got awarded the point shoes when I was 12 years old, and we've eventually, I think that was the last year that I actually went to that studio, maybe because I myself and my mom were a little disappointed at the fact that everyone got the award, and there were quite a few people that really weren't ready to be in point shoes, but they put them in it anyway. So we went and found another studio, and I will still say to this day that Miss Virginia Nekras out in Northern California is one of the best ballet instructors and dance all-around instructors that I've ever had in my life. She really advanced my career in multiple ways, and we'll get to that, because if it weren't for her and her selflessness of coming to me, as I danced for her until I was 16 years old and started my first Nutcracker. I was Clara, one of the minor leading roles. And when I retired from dance, which is way down the story, we're bouncing again. When I retired from dance, I actually came back to California, where I was from, and was the Sugar Plum Fairy for 2 years in a row as a guest performer. So that was a big accomplishment. But what I was talking about is Miss Nekras actually came to me when I was about 15 and my parents and said, look, Jennifer is very excelled in what she's doing, and if she really wants to pursue this as an occupation, she needs to go away. You can't stay here anymore. She said, my talent of teaching her has come to an end, and if you want to pursue this as a career, you're going to have to go away. So we made a big choice, a huge choice. And there were two choices, because Virginia was actually friends with a gentleman who owned a company in Germany. And so that was one choice that we had. And one of my other classmates had gotten the same advice, actually, and she had gone to a private boarding school for performing arts in Boston, outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And so those were the two choices. I, by myself, not with my parents or anything, would go to Germany or to Massachusetts. And so it actually was not necessarily, whether or not I was scared or anything, because about 3 or 4 years prior to that, I had started going to summer camps away from home. My first one was in Aspen, Colorado. And so I was like, I don't even know, 14 years old. No, it had to have been less than that, because it was not that far. It was further away from ballet. I don't know. My timeline gets a little bit messed up because it was a long time ago. So I go away to Aspen, Colorado, and in my first time, I'm away from home, away from my parents, 3 months, summer intensive training, ballet camp, which was amazing. I still have so many fond memories of that, the hot air balloon festival being one of them. And all of our studios were outside under giant tents, you know, those giant white tents, not necessarily certain, but like event tents. They put up event tents and they have built ballet floors underneath of them. And so we were literally outdoor dancing. And then off in the distance in the valley, they're having a hot air balloon festival. One of the most amazing summer camps that I actually went on, actually. But that started me off. And so I went to that one, and then I went to Hershey, Pennsylvania to another one the following year. And then we took the next summer off. So this was 3 years prior, because I was going to, we had made the choice rather than, so the choice was Germany or Boston, right? Germany, going to Europe and learning how to get into a company over there. We talked to Chester about this. He said, well, you're going to have to fly over ahead of time and audition for the company to see if you can get into it. And there's no guarantee, you know, just because I'm here doesn't mean that I can get you in indefinitely. So that was a big expense. It would have meant that, you know, probably my mom would have had to flown with me and flown over there, and we do an audition and then wait to see if I get in. And it was kind of like a last minute thing. If I was going to get in, I wouldn't know until like a month before I had to leave, which was a little, you know, difficult to swallow. The other option, going to Massachusetts, I did a video audition, so I didn't actually have to go there. And I did my SATs as a sophomore in high school, which of course most people don't take their first SATs until their junior year. An interesting thing happened about that, little side note, my math SAT scores were off the charts. And everyone was all in a hubbub. In fact, I had some universities actually contact me after taking my SATs because my math scores were so high. And I was a sophomore. I hadn't even taken some of the math concepts that are in the SAT, like geometry and stuff like that. I hadn't even had those classes yet, but yet I got almost a perfect score on the math SAT. Not as well on English, mind you, but the math was off the charts. So the school in Massachusetts obviously thought that it was a really good choice. And so they brought me in, and I had amazing pictures back then. It was crazy stuff. I'm going to actually see if I can find that and put that up on here at some point, you know, where I could actually hold my foot up behind my head. Crazy stuff, right? Those are back in the day when we were young, right? The things that we could do. So the choice became a little bit easier at that time, and so I packed up my bags and I moved literally at the ripe old age of 15 and a half to Boston, actually Natick, Massachusetts, where my school, Walnut Hill School for the Performing Arts, is up on the hill. They call it the School on the Hill. And it's still there today. In fact, just this past year, they had their 150th anniversary because the school has been around forever. It used to be an all-girls parochial school, and then it developed into a performing arts school over time. And we'll get into more of that at some point because that's a whole story all by itself just to talk about my school, which is amazing. I love my school. They've produced a lot of amazing people. So I chose to go to that school. When I graduated from Walnut Hill School for the Performing Arts, I actually went to Pennsylvania Ballet. And I worked there for a short period of time, although they didn't extend me a contract when I was done with their summer program, which was my hope. And so I went into the city and started to learn about the real world, right? What was I going to do with my life? So I continued to audition and audition and audition, and I did a lot of private contracts. So I was working at a studio that was run by a Russian gentleman, and his son and daughter were there, and his son was a very proficient dancer, and so we became a partner duo that would travel around and do shows all over the place. And one of my most memorable times with him performing was one year where we actually did 3 nutcrackers in 3 different states. We would go in, we would do the show maybe 2 days in a row, and then hop on a plane, and we were in another state. And then we get off the plane, and they would have like one dress rehearsal, and then we were on. And we would do the show for a couple of performances, and then we hop on a plane and we go. And the last one was actually at my hometown in California, Eureka, California, just outside of Eureka, California. And so that was a really exciting time for me. I was performing all over the place. I just wasn't actually working at an actual dance company, which was what I was striving for. Obviously, that's what we all strive for as professional ballerinas, is to get into a company, like as in like in the NFL, to be on an NFL team. Right? Same thing. So like New York City Ballet, Boston Ballet, Pennsylvania Ballet, I wound up actually at Sarasota Ballet for my final position. In between there, I did a lot of freelance work. Almost all of my career was freelance work, but some of it was amazing because it allowed me to travel all the way to Japan. For one of my contracts, I lived in Japan for almost 4 months dancing over there, so that one was amazing. So I've got a lot of world travel. I've traveled outside the U.S., obviously to Japan and the Caribbean, and also and in Canada for ballet specifically and dance. So I love that side of it. I've traveled everywhere and I've learned all about different cultures. And I love traveling. I still love traveling today. So that's kind of a little bit, of how I made it from 5 years old and wanting to be a ballerina until traveling all around the world. And I'll talk a little bit more at some point about my trip to Japan specifically, because that one was amazing and it's a very awesome story. And then I'll fill you in on some more about my school, because there's things that tie my school to Japan actually, which is a very interesting connection. But I just wanted you to know a little bit about my background. So thanks for watching today. If you want to hear more about this story, there is a lot to come. Ballet was my first career, but I've built 5 businesses since then. So I'm going to talk a lot about more about those, because that's what I'm really involved in now, is helping people make, save, and protect money, right? And one of the things is through business endeavors. So make sure you hit the subscribe button below so that you get a notification of when the next one comes out. I am going to be doing these almost every day, probably 5-6 days a week, but they're going to be different subjects each day of the week. So hit the subscribe button below. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm actually going to talk about seniors, not seniors in high school or seniors in college, but senior citizens who have college debt, and not just a little bit, but a lot of college debt. What's going on in the industry with that, and a couple of ways to actually help alleviate that issue. So make sure you click the subscribe button. We'll see you tomorrow. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and of course here on YouTube. Search my name, Jen Fitzgerald, and Deluxe Lifestyle Strategies. We'll talk to you soon.